Let us now try to define peace in a global sense. In a global sense is in a broad sense, in a wide sense, in a big sense. So in a global sense, the term applies to all educational endeavors and activities which take as their focus the promotion of a knowledge of peace and peace building. Because peace does not automatically exist, you have to build it. And you can only build it when you can see that peace doesn't exist, conflict is there, something is not right, and you want to fix it. And so peace and peace building kind of go together. Only when peace is built will peace be visible and be seen. If that happens, what should our learners, the students, be actually learning? They should begin to get attitudes of tolerance. In other words, how do we, knowing that we are different from other people, how do we tolerate these differences? We don't have to argue, we don't have to fight, but we need to still get along together in a harmonious, congenial manner. And empathy, as well as skills in cooperation, conflict avoidance, and conflict resolution. Empathy, we've already talked about, is understanding a person from the person's perspective. Cooperation is obviously necessary. If we don't cooperate, we are not going to be able to sustain peace. Conflict avoidance and conflict restoration, both are key. We need to teach young people how to avoid conflict, how to prevent it from happening. And no matter how hard we do it, sometimes conflict will show up. And when conflict shows up, then how do we resolve it? How do we fix it? How do we correct it? So both, obviously, if our students are better at conflict avoidance, they will not need so much time spent on conflict resolution. Conflict avoidance and conflict resolution so that learners will have the capacity and motivation, individually and collectively, to live in peace with others. No matter who the others are, as in the virtual world and in this online world, and as the world shrinks to a global village, we get in contact with more and more people, even virtually. And don't tell me that conflicts don't happen in the virtual world. They happen there too. And so, how do our young people learn to understand in reality or in the virtual world what conflict is, how it can be avoided, and how it can be resolved? Because only then will individuals learn and begin to live in peace with one another. There are commonly expressed the aims of peace. These are commonly expressed as knowledge, skills, and attitudes. We've seen these. We've seen that different people have different approaches to peace education and peace study. But all three need to be incorporated. You cannot focus just on knowledge for peace. You cannot focus only on skills for peace. And you cannot simply depend on one's attitudes for peace. You need a little bit of all three to make for good peace education. Knowledge is an awareness of our needs and self-awareness. That is self. What are my needs? Because as human beings, we see ourselves first. When we see ourselves first, we need to understand ourselves, because unless we do that, we will not be able to understand others. Understanding nature of conflict and peace. So what is the nature of conflict? How does one determine that a situation is a conflict, or a situation is leading to conflict, or the situation can prevent conflict? Ability to identify causes of conflict and non-violent means of resolution. The key to the solution of any problem is not to look at the problem itself, but to see the causes of the problem. Unless we get rid of the causes, the problem is not going away. And to get rid of conflict, non-violent means are essential. Conflict analysis. You need to analyze the conflict situation before you can do anything about it. enhancing knowledge of community, who are the people around me, why are these people around me, what they do, and to understand the interdependence of each other. Mechanisms for peace building and resolving conflict. How can the mechanisms, what approaches can we take? How can we do the peace building process? Mediation process. When a conflict happens, somebody will have to step in. The two parties in conflict are not going to be able to do it on their own. A mediator, a third party is required. Understanding of the rights and responsibilities of both parties or both individuals involved. It's important to understand that each of the conflicting parties have rights and responsibilities. Understanding interdependence between individuals and societies. Today, no individual or group of individuals can say we can survive on our own. That's absolutely impossible. Life in the 21st century is so complicated that we need one another. And because we need one another, it is important to understand that we are dependent on each other also. Awareness of cultural heritage. Each culture, each society has its own heritage. Understanding that is also important for peace. Recognition of prejudice. These are inbuilt, inherently built within each human being. There are prejudices, things, I don't like this, and because I don't like this, I'm prejudiced. I'm not going to be in favor of it, and therefore don't even ask me. That is a wrong way to begin working on peace. If you're working on peace, you need to do it without prejudice. Understanding the causes of conflict. Possible outcome. Students will be able to describe likely causes of typical conflicts in their lives. So begin with the students. Start with the young people themselves. Ask them what conflicts they've experienced and help them identify the causes of those conflicts. That is critical. Possible indicators again. Students will be able to list various causes of conflict, including, so these are some examples of the possible causes. Conflicts over feelings. I felt bad, so I did this. I was frustrated, so I did that. Those are feelings. Conflicts over resources. I have this, you don't. You don't have it. That's a conflict and something must be done. Conflicts over values or beliefs. I believe in something that the opposite person doesn't believe in, and therefore there could be a conflict. When presented with a description of a typical conflict in their school or community, a student should be able to identify broadly in what area do the causes of the conflict lie. Students will be able to identify a likely cause and explain their reasoning. I think it is this because. That because is important. Students will be able to identify conflicts in which there may be more than one cause. Every conflict does not have just one cause. So, what about conflicts with more than one cause? Skills. Communication, active listening, self-expression, paraphrasing, reframing. We've done enough of active listening in the past. I'm not going to go over it, but unless you listen to all the parties involved, peace is not going to happen. Assertiveness, be strong. If you believe in something, if you strongly feel it should be done, be assertive, force your way through it. Ability to cooperate, you must understand each other from each other's perspective. Affirmation, saying yes when you need to, not saying, yes, I agree. Well, why do you agree? What is the need to agree? Critical thinking, can you analyze a situation? That's what critical thinking is all about. Don't depend on somebody else's analysis of the situation. Ability to think critically without prejudice and about prejudice. Both are important. We cannot come to a conflict resolution table with our minds already made. That's a prejudice. Ability to deal with stereotypes. All men, all children, all old people, all disabled people. That's no way to deal with a conflict situation. dealing with emotions, people who are upset, people who are under tension and stress will not be able to contribute constructively. Problem solving, obviously we need the problem solved. So what problem solving skills do we need? Ability to generate alternate solutions. This is a solution, but can there be others? And it's important to look at other possible solutions as well. Constructive conflict resolution, where both parties involved have something to gain mutually. Conflict prevention is a skill. How do you prevent it? How do you not let conflict happen? Participation in society on behalf of peace. That's again a skill. You're participating in societal communal activities, but you're also building peace. And finally, the ability to live with change. Change will happen. Change is a given. Change is a constant. How does one deal with change? How does one live with change? Many times, changes in individual lives lead to conflicts.